It's the Rangers Journal night.
Welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal. It's your Friday news pod where we're going to go over all the week's news in the Rangers sphere, I guess. Joined today by two of my kind of regulars now on this. Although, Billy, it was you were hosting last week. How did you find that?
Terrifying, and it was the first time I'd had to finish one. And I started the pod okay, but I landed it like a flaming Hindenburg. Like Jack was creasing himself as I sort of like stared at the bottom of the screen. He was telling us afterwards, he's going, say something. I'm like trying to hit the button. So I'm glad you're back, Billy.
Oh, thanks. I mean, to be fair, that feeling doesn't go away, and sometimes we do get errors with this that it doesn't actually log off after you clicked to end it. But anyway, I'm back. I'm here to click the buttons. Jack, how are you doing, mate? Nice to see you.
Yeah, good mate. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the season getting started properly tomorrow.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that a wee, I guess, towards the end of the pod. We got a few things that did happen this week. I'm going to start though with the breaking news, and that's this morning that Rangers announced that we have. It's not been a long saga, but we have signed Mikey Moore from Tottenham. Doug had done a bit of a kind of wee stats bomb on us to see what he is. So he's 17 years old. About heights with me, I think. English player, obviously had a few games last season. I think it was 20 odd games he played last season or was involved in last season. Don't know a lot about him myself personally, other than everybody's raving about him. So, Billy, what's your opinion on this signing? You happy about it?
I mean, yeah. You'd like us to be getting players that we have an option to buy or that are going to be players that we develop and get the value from. But he seems like a wee bit of a standout. I mean, obviously the proof will be once we actually see him playing, but everyone in England seems to rave about him. The fact that he's the youngest ever English scorer in Europe, and he beat Jimmy Greaves' record to do that. The fact that he made his first team appearance for Tottenham at 16. This is, to use the term, generational talent. They really rate him. So I think for someone like that, I think Rangers fans will find it easier to swallow like a loan deal where we've no option to buy and there's not any real massive sell-on issue, like likelihood with us where it's someone like this where you think, oh, he could be a bit special. My concern with players like a Mikey Moore or a Tillman or a Diallo is that they are very special players, but they're going to want to come up here and get benefit. They're not going to want to get injured. They're not going to want to kind of like necessarily knock their pan in. So that's what we'll be interested to see. Will he come up here and play within himself? Which I felt a little bit that Tillman, once he felt he'd worked out Scottish football, I always felt went a wee bit into himself. Diallo looked a much better player at Man United than he looked up here. He showed it in flashes, but that's what you maybe get with a 17-year-old. But let's be honest, it is one of those signings that we're all quite excited to see what he can do. I think they're prepping us for the fact that he probably won't be ready for the Motherwell game because they put a wee line out saying that because he's under 18, the international clearance will take a wee bit longer. So I think that's maybe just trying to get us to cooler jets a wee bit. I thought the wee ex-Twitter video was quite cool. Not missing a trick. They've got him in all three kits already. But I thought that was quite a nice way to introduce him, and also a nice way to sort of, for want of a better term, like sort of hype him up in his own mind because he's arriving and it's like, oh, I'm a bit of a big deal here. I'm getting the nice treatment. I thought he was kind of. I like the fact he was a bit gawky and awkward in the video. He didn't seem like somebody in that little video clip who thought, I'm here, I'm Billy Big Balls and I made it. He looked like like a 17-year-old kid, like just arriving at a club and hopefully arrives feeling he's got a lot to prove. But no, yeah, I mean, you've got to say in terms of narrative tension that this is one we all want to see him play and see what all the hype's about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. There's a comment here, Jack. I'll come to you on this. I think I disagree with this. I think that Tottenham want him to be playing. Otherwise, he would have. He had other options to go to the Championship, I believe. I think he's probably here to be a regular starter. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see him coming here to be a bit part player. I think we've got options here that can come in and out. You like to Cortez and dare I say Kieran Dow, who will be the squad players. But I think Mickey Moore's here to play. When I first heard about this transfer, I was a bit concerned by his age. But in the same sense, I mean, look at Barcelona. Look at Yamin Lamal. I mean, he's been running the show there since he was 16. So it kind of proves the point: if you're good enough, you're old enough. We have been bumped by these boys, Tillman, Seema Cherny, where they came on loan, been vital parts, but we've never been able to get the deals over the line. But this is a bit different. There's not that expectation from the outset. With A1s, there was always could we? Well, this one, it is a year. Hopefully, he might get back another year. You never know, but he's coming up here. He's going to be a short-term boost to us. You've seen, I don't know if you guys have seen his goal at the Europa League last year or some of his highlight reels. The boys, if he's good enough to be run the show in Europa League, he should be good enough to, be a big player for us, at least against 10 teams in this league. And obviously, it gives us options in both wings. Moore and Gassama look as if they're going to be the starters. And when was the last time we had two wingers on either side who are both equally as important or dangerous to our team? We've always been kind of going back to Ryan Kent. I know Billy's mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. We've been always lopsided. We've had one really strong winger on one side who gets 2 or 3 guys on him, and then nothing on the other side. So I'm really excited to see us having 2 dynamic attacking wingers. He's here to play. Tottenham, I'm sure if he's not playing in January, Tottenham will take him back with no problem. So here to play, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the boys can do.
Billy, I remember back in the day, back in McLeish's day, there was all these rumours going around that we were going to get Messi on loan for a wee while, and there was similar criticisms actually. I remember from sites like Follow, for instance, saying why we're developing a young player. But I think if Messi had to play for us for a season, we'd still be boasting about it now. So if this guy, if Moore goes on to be anywhere as close as what the hype around him suggesting he's going to be, I think fans in the long run will be quite happy he was here for a year, as Jack has suggested, maybe another year, and there's no buy clause or anything.
No, I mean it just I think it's got the potential to, if it goes well, to be putting us in the shop window for other big talents in England, which, like it or not, that's what we are, next door neighbours to the biggest league in the world money wise. So if we show that with a modern EPL seasoned manager like Russell Martin, that we can bring in young modern players, bed them into a system and develop them, that is going to be one of the ways we're going to keep the squad at a certain level. We can only spend so much. We can only buy so many players. We can only spend at a certain level. If we show that we're the kind of club that can take a Mikey Moore in a year from now, I wonder. I think what Jack was saying is probably accurate. I'm not sure though we'll get him for a second season. If he does well here, I think his next step would be either stay at Tottenham or maybe move, to another club, either like in a European top 5 league for a season, maybe France or something like that. But if we show that in a year he develops here, he shows up well, he scores goals, and we are sending back a slightly more polished, like not rough diamond, but he's closer to the finished article. That's an avenue for, if you're Arsenal or whatever, you're looking at the next player that's coming through going, oh, he's just up the road. We can keep an eye on him. Rangers, in terms of what we can offer, I think it's interesting that the Mikey Moore deal wasn't announced until after we've gone through in Europe, because we now have guaranteed group stage football, which we didn't until we went through against Panathinaikos. So he's going to get the option of 8 games in Europe, 4 Old Firm games. That's some quality input for like a talented player who's on the up. So I think if we show we can do a good job here, it could also be a nice thing on Rangers' CV to turn around to other clubs in England and go, well, look what we did with Mikey Moore. Do you fancy sending up your latest big thing to us just before they break through?
What do you make of the comment here from G Calder? Don't know what your first name is, G. So, that we can't afford to buy all these players to replace a whole team. Jack, what do you think about that? That kind of.
Yeah, it's bang on. I mean, this rebuild's going to take 2, 3, even maybe 4 windows. We've seen that previously with Gerard when he came in. I think we had a crazy amount of loans his first year. I think it was like 6 or something. We had Kent, Kilbally, a few more I can't remember off the top of my head, before Davis. So you need it with a rebuild because you just can't spend the money off the bat. And you even see that across the city with Celtic. They had Carter Vickers and Jota on loan when Postecoglou came in. They had their rebuild. So it's a natural thing to fill your squad with these guys. I also seen a comment from Ian McPhee about not developing other teams' players. I mean, and that's all well and good. And Rangers, in their prime, wouldn't. But I think football's kind of moved on to our detriment. We are not at the top of the food chain anymore. As big a club as we are, due to the league we play in, we're lower down. And we are going to need to take on these guys that aren't quite at the level for these top teams and, give them game time. And I'm not adverse to it, as long as we're not taking, you've seen it under Pedro with Aaron Nemani, a guy that's not ready for first team football. We're not getting guys like that. We're getting guys that are ready for this league, ready for this task, guys that will improve us in the short term. And, if Mikey Moore comes up here and scores 15 goals and we win the league, I don't think anyone will be complaining when he goes back to Spurs. And, he's came up here with a good attitude, and you've heard the comments he said about the club, about what Jermaine Defoe said to him. I think the boy looks a good fit. Unfortunately, he's not going to be one we're going to be able to sign, but I'm very happy to have him here. And, loans are necessary in the modern football. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. What I'm not looking forward to is the season-long, comments and chats that, maybe we can sort something out. That's if he's playing well, obviously. We just need it's off the table. He's already in the 20 million bracket, I would suggest, Billy. Do you think I'm right there?
This is what we're hearing. We're hearing that he's if they were selling him now, they'd want 20 million quid. So we as fans and as a podcast can knock that in the head right now. Will it stop garbage merchants like Keith Jackson and people who just have like headlines to fill, like claiming, that things are trying to be worked out and there's possibilities? No, because like they need to fill stuff and they just make it up. But I think anyone common sense wise knows that Mikey Moore is already out of our like Diallo. These kids are currently worth 20 million quid. The only way we're going to get a Mikey Moore is if he does a Rabi Matondo, and he was like a 10 million pound player who we got for 2.5 million. No red flags there. So no, I don't think there's any danger.
Jack, I think it was you that mentioned getting through to the group stage, or guaranteed group stage. If it was Billy, I apologise. But yeah, let's move on to that. We did progress, one each draw, Panathinaikos. I liked your comment saying we'd have two main people on the wings, because I was absolutely shocked at how we played the other night there. I don't know how we got. I say we got through because of Jack Butland, to be fair. But what did you make of the game? Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, so I started about 20 minutes in. I missed the first 20 minutes. But from what I've heard, it was pretty much the same, backs to the wall sort of stuff. I mean, I've heard, you could say it was like a throwback to a Walter performance, but I wouldn't say so, because I don't think the defence was actually sitting in like they did back then. There's going to be teething problems with playing out the back. So Southampton fans have said it, Swansea fans have said it. It's going to take a while to come good. When it comes good, it'll be brilliant, and I'm very confident it will come good. But we're going to have a few kicks in the teeth when we get there. Thankfully, we got away with a few sort of errors. There was one in particular, Tavernier, where we really should have been punished. We should have been punished a few times. They missed a lot of chances. But at the same time, we took ours, and that's all you can do. They got the goal, and I'm thinking the worst. If they get another one quickly, we're in trouble. They had the chance, they didn't take it. We go up, Danilo shot gets blocked, and there's the gas man there to finish in. And honestly, I don't remember the last time we had a guy that the general support unanimously loved so quickly in a long time. The guy looks a real player, and you can see the Sheffield Wednesday fans saying we've got to steal the right. He's already paid his transfer fee back in these two goals. But overall, the performance wasn't great. I wouldn't like to see too many more of them, and I don't think we'll be able to afford the same performance against Pilsen. But it's a start. It's a win. It's what we needed. And if that catapults us to getting, Mikey Moore and one or two others in, then great. I just hope it starts to gel a bit more ahead of the Pilsen game, because I know they're not as big a name as Panathinaikos, but they're a really good team. You've seen that. They went to Switzerland against Servette and they turned that tie round, and they're no mugs. They're not a big name, but they're no mugs, and we need to be on our game for it.
Billy, when the gas man put that goal in so quickly after obviously going down a goal, I don't think I've screamed or yelped for a Rangers goal in quite a long time, and that just shows you how when the last time an important game move me in any kind of way. What was your thoughts on? I was going to suggest to you first of all that we need to start learning how to hold on to a ball, because it seemed like every time we got out of defence we'd lose it almost instantly. But how did you feel the game went?
I mean, there's no denying it was not a good performance, and we have ridden our luck a wee bit. But there's two ways of looking at it. We defended badly, so we can criticise the team for that. We also had a world-class goalkeeping performance. That's not luck. That is what we can't have it both ways. We can't go our defence was rotten, but our goalkeeper was lucky. So I think we have to give Jack Butland credit. He's put himself right back in the number one slot, unless Russell Martin really wants a keeper who's more comfortable with the ball at his feet. I think this early in the season, we have to accept it's literally about results. That every podcast I've listened to, every Southampton one, they talk about Russell Martin's style takes a while to bed in, and I really had the fear that we were going to get turned over against Panathinaikos because they're a solid European outfit. The fact that we went through is the only thing that matters, literally. Now, if we're still playing like this at Christmas, then we're probably going to be well off the pace in the league, and questions will be getting asked. But I think we're into the group stages European football. That is it. If we had not gone through in this tie, the route to Europa League is pretty nasty looking if we dropped out. So I'm really glad for Russell Martin that he's got the breathing space. What will be really interesting now is having got through this tie, we're going to have 3 games in 7 days. And he's been sticking with tried and tested so far. I know a lot of people are quite upset about Kieran Dowell figuring. I think Kieran Dowell's in because he's fit, he's left-footed, and he can run about a wee bit. I don't think he's part of the long-term plans. So I just think all that matters at this stage of the season is we've got European group stage football, because there are a lot of new players in and a new system, and it's so early you wouldn't be expecting to see anything. As for the gas man turning up to read your meter, I mean, if Jack's saying that he can't remember a while since Rangers fans have been so on board, no wonder. I mean, he's been on the pitch for 4 minutes and two key European goals. You could question whether he did much after that. I'm only joking, but in terms of actually making a difference, I love it when a Rangers player comes in and immediately shows you something you can hang your hat on. We've seen enough players come in and they start okay and then they fade a wee bit. So I hope that there's no danger of that. But he must be loving it here, and we're certainly loving everything he's done so far. So if this is a taste of what recruitment under the 49ers is like, but bring it on.
Jack, just going kind of back to the game, but also looking forward to next week's game. You pronounced the bit, is it Pilsen? Is that how you pronounce them?
I think so, Victoria Pilsen.
Pilsen. Well, I'm just going to bring up that they put out a statement saying, well, really kind of complaining about the fixture pile-up, which I completely understand, actually. But it looks like they have their game postponed, so their next game will be on Tuesday night against us. We obviously have that option as well. It doesn't look like we're going to take it, in my opinion, thankfully. But would you have liked us to have delayed this game, or is it really important for us at the moment to be playing rather than resting?
Yeah, two kind of ways to take it. First of all, I think the FFA rules state we can only do it once, and I'd like us to delay that in case we get a playoff round, because I think that'll probably be the tougher one you'd want a delay ahead of. But yeah, I think this early in Russell Martin's regime, when he's trying to get them together, the best thing for the boys is to play as many games as possible. All due respect to Motherwell, I don't see them being anywhere close to a top 16 this year with the squad they've got. So I think we should be going out there and we should be able to get a few goals early doors and then hopefully bring on the substitutes. It never turns out that easy, of course, but I think playing a team like Motherwell, we should be able to go out there, get the confidence built up ahead of Tuesday, and then going into it. I'm confident. I think the best thing to do is get minutes in the legs, get more minutes on the park, playing this new style, get used to it, because you don't want to go from the Panathinaikos game straight into another European game without having more time to work on this. And the best way to work on it is by playing games, really.
Billy, same kind of question to you, I guess. Are you happy that the game's going ahead?
In all honesty, I think it's going to make life very difficult for us. Personally, I'm not upset that the game's going ahead, partly because I'm absolutely gagging to see Rangers start the league season. So it's like, it's kind of like having postponed it would be like, for me, when I sit down to RTV on a Wednesday night and I'm like, put the feed on and there's nothing there, and then I go and check and it turns out the game's been rained off in Dundee or something. No worse feeling than a game you're all hyped up for getting pulled. But this will be a wee bit controversial. But I'm not. I like what Jack's saying about like you just get games played because like that this team needs minutes and needs to kind of get, as Big Phil would say, the automations going. I'm not sure it gives us the best chance of going through against Pilsen because I think they are going to be a step up. I mean, I don't know much about Czech football, but having seen the Prague teams in recent years, we got a good look at them, and they are disciplined, they're obdurate, they're skillful, they are tough nuts to crack. So if Pilsen, having gone to Switzerland and won 3-1 away, are that kind of team, then I think it'll be a much sterner test. And this is where the controversial bit comes in. I'm not as fussed about getting to the Champions League because I want us to win the league this season. And we're all Rangers fans. We want to win everything all the time. But if I take a step back, which I try to do from time to time, and I say, what gives us the best chance of winning the league? I think Europa League is, for this squad of players, for the guys that we're bringing in, I think that, you're already seeing what Gassama and players are looking like in at this level. I think if we get into the Champions League, we could be expecting too much from players who are quite sort of like early in their development. I think it could go badly for us in the way that it did last time. And even if it didn't, I think it's going to be a much bigger drain on a new squad than getting to Europa League, where I feel like Europa League would actually give us some good experiences, would kind of let us build up the players that we're bringing in. So I'm happy for us to play the games. I don't think it gives us the best chance to go to the Champions League. But to be honest, for me, this season is more and more about the league. And I'll be honest, like I think that there was a school of thought that maybe will take a season to get bedded in. And I think under Russell Martin, we might be that by the time we're up and running, we're behind in the league. But the more I look at the recruitment, the more I think the 49ers are serious about going for the league this season. If everything clicks, this is a squad that, it could be 3 or 4 windows, but they are not hanging about. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And like I say, if that means we don't get through against Pilsen, I will be disappointed. But when I take a step back, I'll also maybe be like, okay with it. So, I'm sure that'll wind somebody up, but hey-ho.
Yeah, no, Jack, for me, too many seasons now, we have thrown away the momentum on day one, either drawing or losing. Remember the Kilmarnock game? I think just correct me if I'm wrong, was the last time we won the opening game not Aberdeen in the 55 season? It may not have been, but that's the last one I remember.
I think we won the year after. I remember we beat Livingston because I couldn't get a ticket because it was still, I don't know, 20,000 there, and then of course the year after we got the win at Livingston. But the last 2-3 years since, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst last season was the last time, so it's been 3 years, since we won the opening day, and it just puts you under pressure straight away because Celtic, win more likely win their opening day fixture, and then you're behind right away. You're already playing catch up. I mean, you've seen it in the 55 year when you get that run of wins to start the season, especially with the first Old Firm game being at Ibrox this year. If you can get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins on the bounce, they're under pressure. And I think we've seen Rodgers previously. He is great when Celtic have the ascendancy, but you've seen it only for a short period when Gerard first came in. See, if you put him under pressure, cracks will start to show. They're already showing across the city with your lack of transfer business and their fans going off their rocker. Surprise, surprise. But I think if we put them under pressure, they can crack. But we need to do it. When was the last time we went in a run? It probably was the 55 season. if you build up that momentum from the start, you put them under pressure, you're the team to beat. And that's a different challenge, not just for them, but for the players we've got staying here, because they don't have that history of being the top team. And we had it under Clement for a month and threw it away. We need to prove we have the I can't think of a better word than the cojones to hold out and pull away, because there's no point being the second place team chasing again and again, because then if you have one mistake, that's you done. If you build up that lead, you have a bit of wiggle room because you are the team that others need to catch.
Well, just staying on the same subject, because it just annoys me. I mean, Doug confirmed it there. The last win was 22-23 season on the opening day. We don't like to talk about Celtic too much, but those players over there, they haven't had too many transfer business over the summer. So these are players that have been there a couple of seasons. They've not had scoreboard pressure at all at any point in the last couple of years. It's always been advantage Celtic from day one in the season. So for me, the game needs to go ahead. We need to get the win. And that puts pressure on them from their day one. They're already coming from behind.
I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things when people talk about we get all the usual sort of like folk in the media spouting the Celtic are this far ahead and that far ahead, and there are a couple of things that always spring to mind with me. One is you cannot get 20 years ahead in Scotland, because the level of player you can buy, the money you can spend, the level of player that will come up here. Celtic will never have that much of they can be ahead, but they're never going to be like people go 5-10 years ahead. With good recruitment, you can bridge that. The other thing is that scoreboard pressure that Jack was talking about, it's massive, because if you are a squad, we saw it in the 55 season. It's like a steel pipe is structurally intact and looks completely like solid and unbreakable until the first crack goes in. When the crack goes in, everything collapses. We saw that in 55 season. We went from losing the league by X number of points to horsing it by about 25 points. And that's because once Celtic were under pressure, like they had no experience at it. They're not used to the scoreboard pressure. They're not used to going, it is one of the things, and I get why it makes you angry, Billy, because I'm the same. It's like, I want to see a Celtic team that is made to work for what they get. And I think in too many recent seasons, we've allowed them to do the unforgivable thing of letting, elite athletes just like relax and play, and know that if we miss this chance, like another chance will come along. And if we drop points today, chances are Rangers will drop points this week or next week. That's not how it should be. And we've seen that players that aren't used to that, especially at Celtic, a lot of players come up to Celtic and it's like they're just there to kind of pad the CV and get a big move. These are not guys who want to be in the trenches. I think that there's a lot of players come up want to play nice football, stroll around, win a league, and off they go. And I think if they suddenly find themselves in the trenches, like where every game the tackles are flying in and every missed pass, we've seen what their supporters are like. Every missed pass that is getting the crowd turning against them, and if they're out and about in Glasgow, they're getting it tight. That's what you want. My worry is that I think at this stage of the season, I would be taking any kind of wins. I know there were comments earlier on about if this is how the style of Russell Martin's play is going to be, we're in for a long season. I don't think that's what he's aiming for. I just think it's going to take a while to click. So kind of the same again on Monday. On match day on Saturday. Like if we get a scrappy 1-0 playing terrible and Jack Butland has to pull off 6 world-class saves, I don't care. I think we are going to have to hang in by our fingernails for the first month or two while he beds in this system. But why would we expect anything else? Look how many new players were brought in. It's a new manager. It's new style. But like you, if we start by getting points on the board and start to look like Jack's saying that we're getting points on the board every week, so Celtic start going, instead of going, yeah, we'll win this week, they start having to go, crikey, we better win this week because that lot aren't dropping points. That is such a massive difference in top level sport. So I'm with you. I hope we start with a win. I don't care how we get them for the first few months, and then hopefully we start to see the style with it.
Well, we've talked about... Sorry, Jack.
Sorry, mate. I also think another thing is we see it a lot. See if you're needing to get a win and it's 1-1 and in a game against Motherwell at home, you get the fan pressure, and that's something they've not had to experience. Their own fans going on their back that much. If they're needing a win in the last minute and they're not getting that goal, they won't relax because they'll all be on their back. And again, even with that squad, you've got players like Cal McGregor that I think are getting salted by the mere idea of pressure. And I think if you make that a reality for them, they've got a real chance of getting in their heads, which is something we've not done and something we really need to do.
Well, I was going to say before you came in, Jack, is we've talked about them enough in this pod. It wasn't my intention, but it was just to make a point of we need to get the points on the board first. We're playing first. Let's get a win with that one. But we will talk about the game towards the end of the pod. Billy, you had a couple other points you'd mentioned before we started. The first one being some transfer news around Bailey Rice.
Well, it's more at this stage. It's more a rumour on a Partick Thistle like sort of football club or fan update. Who knew there was such a thing? Like Thistle fans like bothered with stuff like that, but apparently they do bother about football other than on a match day. Apparently rumours circulating.
Football and kumquats, I've heard.
Sorry,
football and kumquats. That's the two main interests.
Somebody like on another podcast now I think about it, it's not one I can say on here, but it was quite funny. The rumours apparently are going round that they're looking to get Bailey Rice on loan at Thistle. Also like a Celtic player, Dane Murray, haven't heard of him, but they're looking to get Bailey Rice, and whether that's genuine, whether that's the thing that I would find interesting about it is there's no real love lost between Thistle and Rangers, so it's difficult to see why they'd start a rumour like this, on the basis that it's a player that they're super happy to get. But that's the rumour that started doing the round, that they're looking to maybe get Bailey Rice in. And what would be interesting is that a signal that Russell Martin's had a look at Bailey Rice and thinks that he's not going to get enough minutes this season in our squad, and that he's better going somewhere else where he's going to play pretty much week in, week out. And it's always the trade-off, it's not to say that Russell Martin doesn't rate Bailey Rice, but it is that sort of, look what we're talking about with Mikey Moore. Is he better playing, 20 minutes every week or two at Rangers, or is he better going to Thistle and trying to show he can be the main man? And I've got to be honest, I like what I've seen of Bailey Rice. I'm not blown away. I'm struggling to think of too many instances where I go, he is going to be the future. I'm seeing enough things where I can go, if he keeps developing, he can be part of the team, and we should definitely stick with players like that. Personally, I don't think it would be the worst. Mark Wilson, I think, is the manager at Thistle, and ex Super Scoreboard pundit is your manager. Hardly gets the pulse quickening, but maybe he's decent at developing young players. But that's the rumour. So it'll be interesting to see what people think about that, because I can see the logic in it, but equally it could be total nonsense.
I pulled a comment up there by Robert Harron, who it was me and him that started this slot for a news show. Bob, where are you? You could be here. You're commenting on the side. Get on the pod. Come on. Jack, I'll come back to you on Bailey Rice. I do like him. I actually thought he might get a chance to break through this season, at least play a bit more games. But if he's not, he has to go out on loan, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does. But I would not like to see him go to Thistle. Now, it's not out of any bad will towards Partick Thistle, but I think he's a Premiership level player already, and that's the level he should be playing at. I don't see any point in putting him down in the Championship when I think he can more hold his own in a lot of Premiership midfields. I mean, it was mentioned, obviously mentioned comment there, Motherwell, Glenn Miller goes, that's your ideal place to send him. It's a place he was the youth player, it's a place he'll play every week, a place he can develop. The only issue would be probably not going to be a team pushing towards the top of the league. Ideally, you'd like him at maybe a Hearts, a Hibs, or Aberdeen. As much as we're not a big fan of the clubs, I think that would be a good level for him. The only concern about a loan deal for me is, if I'm not wrong, his contract's up at the end of this year. So I would like to see an extension to that, because I do worry if we loan him out and he gets kind of forgotten about or doesn't pull up any trees. He's one of these guys that will leave for nothing and then go on to prove why we should keep him down the line. And while Billy mentioned there's not been many instances of him standing out, I think he's shown enough I mean, you've seen him be composed in at Old Trafford. He's had a few decent games in the league. There's enough potential there to stick by him for at least a few more years and develop him. But from what I have seen, definitely a Premiership level player. I wouldn't be loaning him to the Championship. And I don't see Mark Wilson being in that job for long. So I don't know. I think we should be looking for other options if we are looking to loan Bailey out.
Billy, I think Finlay Curtis has cemented his place with the team this season. I'm assuming he's going to stick around. Is there any other the youth, the players kind of breaking through that would benefit going out on loan, from you, in your opinion?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think you're getting to the stage of the season where if you are not in and around the first team squad, then yeah, you probably should be looking at a loan deal. Like I saw Thomas McCrimmon there had put a couple of comments in, one predicting that if we go ahead I'm kind of paraphrasing, but if we go ahead in the league, that there'll be Sharknadoes at the other side of town again, but also saying he would actually keep Rice in our current squad because he's better training with us at a higher level. Have to disagree with you there, Thomas. I think the bane of young players in Scottish football, particularly, but in modern football in general, is they don't play enough competitive games. You can train with higher level players, but if you're not in the heat of the battle with some sort of hairy jobber flying in trying to break your ankles, and and it's 1-1 in the last minute, and you're having to keep possession at the corner flag or whatever happens to be, real match situations with people paying their mortgages with the money they earn playing against you, I think that it's like it's the old sort of like steel temper steel thing. So I think training. He's done training at a high level with us. He's done it for a couple of seasons now. And I genuinely think he'd be better going into a competitive environment. I agree with Jack. I think he would be better doing it at a Premier League level. So whether that Partick Thistle rumour is just that, or whether it's maybe testing the water to see if any Premier SPFL club wants to come in and take him for a season, I don't know. But I would say if you're a Rangers youth team player and you're not breaking into the squad yet, at a time where, let's be honest, Kieran Dowell has been, like a fixture in the first two games, and I think, like most of our youth team players should be looking at getting loans up, with the exception of Finlay Curtis, because he's interesting. Even in games where he's not making massive difference or maybe influencing the whole game, he's scoring goals. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops across the season. And I think as much as Mikey Moore might be a different level, I think someone like Finlay Curtis has shown enough to stay in and around the squad, because he will get minutes, and I think he should develop across the season. But as for the rest, if you're not in by now, I think you'd be as well looking to go and get minutes at a senior level somewhere.
Jack, I know it's the 1st of August today. We've still got another full month of the transfer window being open, but are you kind of concerned, like I am, about the lack of players like Kieran Dowell and Ben Davies not going out?
Yeah, I posted an article about the business sort of stalling. I got a bit of backlash, but my main point in it is it's stopping us bringing in all the guys we want to bring in. You've got Cifuentes, Davies, Dowell, McCausland obviously is going. You've got Matondo even, who's injured, Yilmaz who's injured, all kicking about on decent wages. And as much as we've got this new investment, we're not going to keep putting that wage bill up with these guys still in the books, and it is holding us back. And I don't want to get a situation where we get to the last day of the window and they're all going out on loan deals and kicking about for another year. We're still paying half their wages, because it's going to stop us getting to where we need to be. It's going to stop us improving our team. And I think it actually hurt Gerrard last time with the rebuild, because you still had guys like Jason Holt, Michael Halloran, etc. out on loan for the first 2 years of his tenure, and it slows down your incoming business. But the difference this time is Rabbi Matondo's on £30,000 a week. I mean, you could get 2 first-team players in for that, who off the back contribute more than Matondo's done in 3 years, or on one now it has to be called a fluke goal against Celtic. It's concerning, because I feel like we're going to get further and further down this transfer window. I think maybe the Connor Cody deal's been held up by the fact they haven't been able to offload Ben Davies. I did see there is a few reports down in Birmingham that have accepted a bid of about £750,000, which, I mean, at this stage you just need to take that and hopefully it goes. But we need these bodies at the door. We need the likes of Cifuentes at the door. And the biggest one for me is Ravi Matondo. He's been such a drain in our resources for years. Was very little output. We need to work out a way to get rid of these guys, even if it's, worst case scenario, come into agreement with a sort of payoff, because we're just draining money on them and they are contributing nothing. Ideally, we'll get some money for them, but I think we just need to clear the decks any way we can.
To be fair to Ravi Matondo, he did score the exact same goal a week before, so he's got 2 of those goals in his locker. It just unfortunately he didn't ever do anything else again. But to be honest, he's been injured for the majority of his time with us. It's just been a completely disappointment. I was quite excited when he joined. Welsh international, was doing well in Belgium, I believe, but they play a completely different style. They're maybe more akin to Russell Martin's style actually over there. So we'll see what happens with him. He's obviously injured at the moment. Can't really do much about that. Can't really offload players. Who's going to take an injured player? Well, us probably. That's one answer to that. Billy, you mentioned before we started as well about the Conor Cody deal. You've saying it was dragging on. You thought maybe it came to a conclusion that it wasn't going to happen.
Well, not so much that. Sorry, just before I go any further, it was funny to hear like Jack saying he put an article on the internet and he got backlash from the internet. Surely not. That's like that. You must be doing something wrong there, because I've rarely heard of that. Also, like I saw one of our commenters had said that, actually Stephen, who'd said that the Rice to Thistle thing looks like he'd heard it's happening. I don't know if he'd heard it's happening here 5 minutes ago, because that's the nature of the internet. But I had a quick Google and gone like Rice to Thistle, and got some interesting recipe suggestions, including sticky rice with marinated Korean thistle. So nice. As ever on the internet, careful how you search. On Conor Cody, what I'd heard is, and whether this is sort of like Leicester playing hardball or whatever, but I'd heard that the new manager was starting to kind of like take a shine to him. And where that was interesting is he's taking a shine to him, and maybe Leicester now want a couple of million for him. So that's sort of slightly contradictory. Do you really like him and want to keep him, or do you really like him to bump up the price? So it seems like we certainly seem quite keen on Conor Cody in terms of thinking he's going to, not quite that Davy Weir character, but that sort of senior pro in the defence that can maybe coax along the young players, help develop them, and has got good ability and experience himself. Whether we're waiting to get that $750,000 for Ben Davies, or whether it's actually Leicester are the problem, I don't know. But I have heard that story that apparently he's done quite well. The manager doesn't fancy getting rid of him. Maybe they need a replacement, and they reckon it's going to cost a couple of million. So will be interesting to see how long we hold on, because that has dragged on. And not throwing any shade at Conor Cody, but like I know when we did we did one of the previous pods and we were talking about Conor Cody, one of the things that came up is he talks very well. He's a very eloquent and interesting guy, has a lot of media commitments, and I'm not saying there's an element of there seems to be a lot of stuff going around him and a lot of it's not as straightforward as maybe a junior player coming through who just signs for you, but does seem to be dragging, does seem a wee bit more complex, does seem like there's a few more variables in sort of the mix, but we seem keen to get him in. Just hope we've got a plan B. I'd be interested to know who we're going to go for if we don't get Conor Cody, because it is getting quite close to the point of sign him or don't sign him, because I know we've still got like a bit of the window left, but there comes a point where you need to know what your planning is going forward. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get him in, and if that is dependent on getting rid of Davis. Please God, let us get rid of Davis either way at first, because I've never liked Ben Davies on the side. I don't think he does Scottish football. I don't think he really wants to kind of commit in the way that you want a player to, and I don't think he contributes enough as a senior pro. So I'm hopeful we'll get Conor Cody in. I'm very hopeful we get rid of Ben Davies.
I thought when you were mentioning there, you googled Rice to Thistle, that and a picture of you came up, and it was you breaking the news. That would have been quite apt.
The internet eats itself.
Yeah, I mean, is there even real people on the internet anymore? Who knows? But let's, I guess, want to talk about the game. I was going to say, because something you reminded me of, I think it was you talking about transfers, Jack, was the manager's kind of constantly saying, oh, the team will look different in a week's time, but this just seems so painfully slow. From week to week, we still have these players hanging around that we all know they need to go. They probably don't want to be here either, getting all the hassle they get. So, I think we need to get things moving. We've got a month left, so it's going to be a painful month, but hopefully from a podcast side of things, it gives us lots of content to give out to people. Jack, I'll come to you. We're obviously playing Motherwell tomorrow, 5:30. Please join us if you can on the pre-match and post-match, an hour before kick-off and then right at kick-off for a reaction to it. But comparing the team from the other night there, Jack, do you see that being the starting lineup against Motherwell?
Probably. Myself, I'd probably like to see Max Aarons coming in at right back, and even if it's just Jeffy in at left back, I'd like to see a bit more of Max Aarons on his natural side. But I do think we'll probably go with a very much in a muchness. Of course, I don't think Moore's going to be available, so we'll probably the only change maybe Gassama and for Dowell. What's interesting is Oscar Cortez seems once again completely out of the picture, which is concerning because we've committed a lot of money to the move and we need to see something. I don't know, maybe he could come in against Motherwell at the weekend, or maybe we save him for a home game against Dundee. But the boy needs a chance to show something. We've committed this money, and what's the worst that could happen? Well, you know what I mean? But I don't see too many changes. I think the midfield three will be the same: Raskin, Rothfield, Diamande. Midfield, the defence probably be Tavernier, Aarons at the full back, Bougie-Gins at the centre back. Up front, you might see Dessers come in, which I wouldn't be too against. I know people have their opinions on Dessers, but I think for the league, he's probably our best option at the moment. Danilo had a good pre-season, but he's not shown up too well in our European games. I think he's a guy that's more suited to play as a two. Maybe we'll see that, but I don't see Martin differentiating from his tactics. But long way of saying, I think it'll be a much in a muchness, maybe one or two changes, Gassama coming in to start. But no matter what team we should put out, Motherwell, I don't think should give us too many problems. If we play our capabilities, we should get through this one and finally get back to a winning way on the opening day.
Well, yeah, I agree that I don't think Russell Martin will probably change too much, but for me, I wouldn't be an objection to see the front three completely different. Curtis, he had a good game last week, but it was kind of ineffectual. It's hard to maybe criticise Danilo too much because he didn't really get a lot of chances, but he never really done anything, never held the ball up. Dessers made a big impact when he did come on, actually. So as much as I'm not wanting Dessers to start, I think he probably is the better option, and you're just going to thinking who on earth can we play instead of Dowell? And you've also got the option of possibly Osgaard coming in as well.
I mean, it's funny, like, no harm to Dowell, like he is what he is, and he's clearly, if you go down to the first division, he's a decent player. And I would love to see, like Jack was saying, bringing Gassama in for Dowell, and basically you're swapping out a shopping trolley for a Ferrari at the moment. So that is a massive difference. And it just, in terms of pushing back the opposition and making them think twice, and these are big things. So Danilo, I wouldn't mind Danilo staying in. I've always thought he looked decent in league games. Dessers, what you can say about Dessers is that the manager will look and go, well, he scores goals in Scotland. So if he is wanting to mix it up a wee bit, yeah, it could be you bring Dessers in. I would love to see Gassama start instead of Dowell. A dream scenario would be maybe getting Tello Asgard on the bench, and maybe if we're 2 or 3 goals up, having a wee sort of 20-30 minute cameo, because Russell Martin was very excited about him in a way that usually managers are quite guarded, but he's talked a couple of times and it's almost like he's liking what he sees so much that he kind of wants to unleash him. So it would be nice to have a few different options, because I don't feel very comfortable that the team that went through against Panathinaikos in of itself is going to be enough to get us through against Pilsen. So it would be nice to have Gassama as a starter, and maybe Asgard coming into the position where he can do the Gassama thing and come on for 20, 30 minutes and make a difference. So that, I wouldn't have a massive preference between Danilo and Dessers. I do like Dessers. I'm in the Mitch camp there. Although I'm going to keep flagging this up because Jack was saying about Oscar Cortez maybe drifting out the picture a bit. Mitch was on the other night, and in 12 to 24 months, he's predicted we're selling Cortez for an absolute packet. I'm not saying he's wrong, because I did like what I saw Cortez early on, but given his injury travails and recent performances, that is one leap of faith. I have got, that's one I'm not going to forget. Mitch has predicted that 12 to 24 months Cortez is going to be a big money move. So I wouldn't be averse to having him in and around the squad. It was good that he showed the attitude that Russell Martin was talking about. If you're having a crap game or you're still not at least you run about a bit. That should be a minimum, but it'd be nice to see him add quality to that. So I hope he gets a chance.
You're a brave man quoting Mitch, Billy, because I think Scotty might be having a word with you after this about that. Mitch's takes on things. Well,
we're trying to generate content. If we can't, if that sort of outrageous fortune telling isn't going to get people reacting, I don't know what will.
Fair enough. No harm, Mitch. You're entitled to your crazy opinions, and your opinion on Tav and Dessers is very opposite of mine, I think. Look, I expect a hope for a comfortable game tomorrow. Don't know if I see many changes just because the way Russell Martin kind of talks. I'm assuming there'll be a press conference later today. I was checking to see if there was any quotes from that, but it doesn't look to have happened yet. But I'll keep an eye out on that, and we'll post some things on the social media side of things when we get some comments. Jack, you're not a score prediction, but do you predict a kind of easy day at the office tomorrow, or you think it's going to be a slog?
It's really hard to predict this early in the season, but I think we should win. I think it'll be a rough first half an hour, but I think once we get into our groove, take control, I think we should be able to win this one fairly comfortably. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Rangers, something around that bracket, I think.
Fair enough, mate. And Billy, you thinking it's an easy ride or a not back to the wall from us, but back to the wall with Motherwell defending for 90 minutes and we maybe scrape a goal?
I don't know about back to the wall. I think it's just impossible to predict this early in the season. I don't really. It sounds weird to say. I don't really care how we play as long as we win. So it would be nice to see flashes of the play that Martin's going to embed. But I think early on in the season is when it's limited teams are going to find it easier to try and negate what we're doing because we haven't bedded it in. So like teams that run about or sit in low, it's going to be more difficult. We're going to need to be patient. I don't really care. We get the 3 points, like Jack said earlier, we get the scoreboard pressure on and worry about performances improving over time. And at least what you're doing then is as you're building the technical side of things, you're embedding the mentality. So I want to see us winning from day one because we should always beat Motherwell. And if it's the ugliest win you've ever seen, couldn't care less on day one.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Right. That's all the news I had. Billy, anything else that you wanted to bring up?
It was reassuring to know that with all the concerns we had about refereeing in Scottish football, on the back of Omar Brown and saying that Scottish football is corrupt, it isn't because Willie Collum says so. Right. He made a compelling argument of it just isn't, backed up by nothing. So we're all to forget the fact that for the last 5 years, there is one team in the league that averages double the number of fouls for yellow cards, season in, season out. Just not to talk about that. We are to ignore the fact that in a major cup final, never mind that before VAR, we lost a cup final when we had 3 Celtic players offside, because that's human error. And, how could you tell? Oh, it's okay, we'll get VAR in. VAR will fix things, and we end up not getting a penalty in a cup final through basically not applying the rules, which has to be cheating. If you're going to say, oh, someone's more out than in, it's the absolute definition of garbage. It's like every offside decision, you'd be going, oh, his foot was only offside, but his body was onside, so he's onside. Absolute nonsense in that cup final. You've got people like Kevin Clancy, who is still the most astonishing thing I've ever seen in football, and that's saying something because that Old Firm game he did was a belter. But where we played Aberdeen, and it's something that we made 22 something like we made 22 tackles and Aberdeen made 23 tackles. And in watching the game, I was like going nuts. And when you got the stats at the end, for our Aberdeen's 23 tackles, they were given 7 fouls, and for our 22 tackles, we were given 23 fouls. It's like it just in any other league, you'd be kind of laughing at it. And I'm going to be controversial here to say I predict that Willie Collum saying there's no corruption in Scottish football will not stop us thinking there is this season, and will not stop absolutely howling refereeing decisions. And I hope the 49ers are all over it all season.
Yeah, that's the one side of things. The fans have been very critical that the club basically do nothing when these things. Let me just clarify, Billy. He doesn't say it's more out than in. He doesn't say the in. He starts to say it's more out than, and then he stops. So just to be factually correct on it.
And thank you for the clarification. I think that's still absolute garbage for a kind of official to be using. He's more out, which means some of them's in, which means it's a penalty. So and I mean, also interesting that I think it was Frank Connor who was on that day. And me and my brother talked about that before, going, he's always trouble when there's a marginal decision. But also, I'm pretty sure it was Alan Muir who that day managed to make a decision that influenced the cup final. And I think they got a week off. And then the bold Frankie got a hero's reception at the sort of Chamber of Secrets the following week. And then Alan Muir makes a decision that's not even guaranteed to be a bad decision about like a cross in a Celtic game in a league season where they're miles ahead, and he loses his very well paid gig on the back of that. And that's messaging to referees, because if you're a referee and you want to make a marginal call, making it against Rangers will not lose you your grand a week on top of your main job. Making a marginal call against Celtic will, and there is no way that doesn't influence people consciously or subconsciously.
Well, Billy, I think you've just carved yourself a pod for the year, Ref Watch, and you can do a weekly roundup of all the Ref Rant. That's it. Jack, any other news you wanted to bring up over here?
No, I kind of agree with what Billy's saying. Celtic have put the pressure on referees for years, and as much as we want to think we're above it, it's a sort of dark arts you're going to start playing if you want to, have a level playing field again. Interestingly, the point you touched on there about his foot's offside but Wrexham's onside, Arsene Wenger actually wants that to be the rule, if I'm not incorrect. But I think we've covered everything. Been a great chat, but no, I've got nothing else to go over.
No worries. Well, look, thank you everyone for the comments you put aside, and for folk that are just watching and listening, thank you very much. The pod does go out as a podcast as well on your podcast apps like Apple and Spotify, etc. I just want to mention we do have a sponsor, which is Off to the Match I Go. So Rangers memorabilia. If you go over there, use the code Journal10. I'm sure you'll find something you like, but you'll get 10% off if you use that code. So that's Journal10 at Off to the Match I Go. So Billy, thanks for coming on again, mate.
A pleasure. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Me too. Jack, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just finish by saying thank you again for watching. Every night is a Rangers Journal night, and I'll click the buttons. Cheers.